Welcome back, Trailblazers. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to take a moment to talk about a tool that has completely transformed the way I plan and navigate my hikes, AllTrails Plus. As a Trailheads ambassador and the organizer of the Yakima Valley Trekkers, I'm out on the trails a lot. One of my favorite features of AllTrails Plus is the ability to edit and create my own maps. Conditions change, fallen trees, washed out sections, or even a last-minute reroute. And with AllTrails Plus, I can adjust my route on the fly and share it with others so everyone stays informed and safe. AllTrails Plus also gives you offline maps, wrong turn alerts, and 3D trail previews to help you stay on track and make the most of your adventure. And the best part, you can get 30% off an AllTrails Plus membership with my exclusive link in the episode show notes. So whether you're planning your next big trek or just looking for a new trail to explore, AllTrails Plus has you covered. Check it out and let's hit the trail. Welcome to Season 12 of the Hikes and Mics podcast. I'm your host, Ivan, and each week we're hitting the trail through conversations with extraordinary hikers from across the United States and beyond. Fall is one of those magical times to be outdoors. The air is crisp, the trails are lined with golden leaves, and every step feels like an invitation to slow down and soak in the season. This year, I've had the privilege of sitting down with hikers who bring the same richness to their stories. From through hikers reflecting on lessons learned to everyday adventurers chasing larch season and finding peace on quiet trails, their voices remind us that the outdoors isn't just about reaching summits. It's about connection, reflection, and discovery. So lace up your boots, grab your favorite warm drink for the trail, and get ready. Season 12 is here, and the conversations ahead are as colorful as the fall landscapes we love. In this week's episode, we're joined by Paul Rivera, a Louisiana-based journalist, nature lover, and environmental storyteller who has spent over a decade reporting on hurricanes, wildfires, and the changing climate. From his early fascination with weather after Hurricane Katrina to his years covering environmental stories in Texas, South Carolina, Florida, and Washington State, Paul shares how his love for storytelling and the outdoors has shaped both his career and personal journey. We explore how hiking became a lifeline during the pandemic, the lessons learned from epic treks in the North Cascades and Mount Baker, and his unforgettable near-misadventure on a snow-covered trail that turned into a story of perseverance and teamwork. Paul also discusses the power of environmental journalism, his investigations into microplastics in tap water, and the importance of bridging outdoor recreation with awareness and advocacy. Without further ado, let's jump into this episode with our guest, Paul Rivera. Welcome, everyone, to the latest episode of the Hikes and Mics podcast. I have a really exciting guest with me today. He's down in Louisiana, and he's going to be sharing all about his outdoor experiences, as well as some of the news and outdoor coverage he's been able to do on his channel. His name is Paul. Paul, thank you so much for coming out on the podcast. We always like to start off by having our guests share a little bit about themselves and how they got started hiking.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it, and I love what you're doing. So about myself, there's a lot to go through, but I'll try to keep it brief and succinct here. So I grew up in Louisiana, and I live here now, but my family, they're from Puerto Rico. I was born to Puerto Rican parents. They moved to the States. My dad got a job in Mississippi, and I was first generation born here in the States. And my parents wanted to just give me a better life than they had growing up. So they came down here, they moved to the States. I have a brother, just a small family. Grew up here in Louisiana, and if you know anything about Louisiana, you know that there's a lot of weather here. Rains a lot, thunderstorms, hurricanes, unfortunately, but there's also a lot of beautiful nature. We've got the beautiful bayous, the wetlands, the swamps. And so I grew up around that, and I grew up around the water. So that started to really interest me at an early age about nature. And also the island of Puerto Rico, where the rest of my family is. If you've never been, I recommend you take a trip to Puerto Rico because it is gorgeous. If you're into tropical beaches, if you're into mountains, forests, they got rainforests out there, some good hiking. There are plenty of rivers out there. It can get a little cold though, but that mixture of things at an early age started to get get me interested in all of this. My family, we tried to do family trips here and there when we had money, of course, to do it. And one of the places that they went and took me and my brother to was we went to Tennessee a lot growing up and did a few little trail walks and things like that for little kids. So between Puerto Rico and those family trips in Louisiana, that started to grow something within me. And I didn't realize it until later on in my life, but it's good that that seed was planted early on. So what I do these days, my career, for those who aren't familiar with me, I have been a news journalist, a news reporter for about 10, 11 years now. And how I got into that career also ties into how I got into hiking and nature and all of that. So a big pivotal moment in my life was Hurricane Katrina. Hit in 2005, August 29th. We just had the 20th year of the anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. So it's been 20 years since that moment. And that started to get me really interested in weather and journalism and news. I didn't realize it until later on, but it planted those seeds. And I eventually figured out in high school that I wasn't very good at math and I wasn't very good at science, but I could talk and I liked making videos. And so I gave that a shot. Did a high school broadcast class that then carried on into college. I got a communications degree and I started my career traveling around doing news reporting. And the cool thing about my job is that I get to travel. I've always loved traveling and exploring, meeting new people. And so I started my career in a little town in Tyler, Texas, 10 years ago, East Texas. And then from there, I went to South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina. It's a bunch of rivers there. You're near the beach, you're near the coast, you're also next to the mountains, the upstate of South Carolina, the Asheville area up in North Carolina. So plenty of mountains to go see over there. And then after that, I went back further south down into Florida and did some time in Orlando, Florida. And it was around this time that the pandemic happened. And I had always been interested in weather coverage from an early age, but I really started to get involved in nature at this time because the pandemic happened. We're all cooped up, right? You can't really do much. So a lot of the outlets that people found was going outside. And in Florida, Florida's beautiful. Unfortunately, there aren't any mountains in Florida. And I wanted to go hike because I had done a little bit of it in South Carolina. And I just needed to get away, to get my mind off of being cooped up and not having much to do. So I would take my weekends, drive 8 or so hours north. People might not know, but there are some beautiful mountains up there northeast of Atlanta, right there along the border. But I found some great hiking trails up there. And that's how I kept my mind busy during the pandemic. I would go to work, I'd focus on that part of my career, but I needed to decompress a little bit. And that's when I really started to get into hiking as much as I did. I took a few road trips here and there to Utah, Salt Lake City, had some friends there. I had some friends out in Montana, did Glacier National Park, very beautiful. And then my time in Florida came up and I was trying to figure out where I was going to go get a job next. I wanted to go live somewhere out on the West Coast because I've always been attracted to the landscapes out there and there's great hiking. And Seattle came up as an opportunity. And I didn't know a lot about Seattle. To be honest with you, what I knew about Seattle was that it rained a lot. I knew about the Seattle Seahawks, and that was kind of about it. But I wanted to live out west, and I said, you know what, if Seattle isn't that great, at least I'll be on the West Coast. And I took a shot. I went there, moved there without even really ever being in the area. And you know what? I struck gold because that place has so much beauty that I didn't know about at first, and a lot of people might not know about it, but the mountains there are gorgeous. The trails are gorgeous. I mean, everything about it's great. You do have to get through the winter of the whole thing, right? The gloomy weather and all of that, but even that's pretty in its own way if you get used to it. But that is sort of what solidified my love for hiking and nature, living out there. I lived out there for 3 years. And between that, you know, I'm really interested in weather and nature, and it all sort of just came together in this one special place of Seattle, and it just grew. And that's translated to where I am today. I have moved back to Louisiana. I've started to do content on my own, but the content that I want to focus on now is weather, environmental stories, nature. And I've been sharing that because I feel like that's a part of who I am And that's been a part of my life so far. And I want to just keep sharing that with the world and maybe do a little good here with my work, get people excited about the outdoors, and maybe just change some things. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. That was a little long, but that's it.
No, Paul, and I'm looking forward to kind of speaking about some of the specific stories that you've done. But I want to say that you're our second guest who was originally from Louisiana. And I'm always curious, especially in some of the states that might not necessarily pop out as outdoor recreational states. But I feel like Louisiana has their own outdoor experiences that are unique. How was it growing up in Louisiana and your relationship with the outdoors back then? And how does it compare to how you experience it now, growing up there and now coming back as an adult?
Well, I will say, I mean, every state is unique in what it brings nature wise. Growing up, my family came from Puerto Rico and they were in this whole new world, Louisiana, Mississippi, this area here. So initially, while they tried to, make friends and branch out, we didn't go too many places. And so the trips that we would do were places that they found familiar, like, we'd go to the beach. There's a lot of those in Puerto Rico, right? It's an island. And then they would go to the mountains like in Tennessee because that's something that they were familiar with. So it wasn't until I started making friends of my own in school that I really started to enjoy what Louisiana had to offer. Just, some camping trips as a little kid. You'd get a little fishing rod, and the first few times you're going out fishing, Louisiana has a lot to offer when it comes to just the outdoors. There's a lot of hunting out here, a lot of water. You get on an airboat, you can go out there and get on a jet ski, all those different kind of things. And so it was a much different experience for me with the outdoors when I was growing up. It was more of like, this is all I know, and there's kind of this other stuff out here. So I would just do it as it happened. It wasn't like, we're really going to go out and go after this. The older I got, the more I started to appreciate and the more into it I got. And when I moved away, I really got into hiking. I started to, I guess, appreciate the special things about the South and about Louisiana. The landscapes are definitely different here, but they're beautiful in their own way. So moving back, I guess to answer your question, I do appreciate it more. The people, the culture, the things out here to do, getting in the water. So the Pacific Ocean is just frigid all the time. But down here along the Gulf Coast, we get into the beach, we get into the water, and that's something that's fun to do. And you can't necessarily do it in the Northwest. I mean, the locals do it, of course, but I'm not a local, so I never got used to that. So that's kind of how I view it. The whole thing about traveling is that you learn new things, but you also appreciate more where you came from.
Oh, so true. I think I learned so much from my travels that make me appreciate what I have here in my local neck of the woods. And, I think you mentioned that you did start hiking and exploring the outdoors when you were out east in the Carolinas, in Georgia. But it seems like maybe some of the bigger peaks or when you moved to Washington, you really kind of caught the bug when it came to hiking and the outdoors. What do you think shifted for you when you moved to the Pacific Northwest?
I mean, I think it was the feeling that I had for hiking and how much it had benefited my life up to that point really thrust me forward. Because if I'm going to be completely honest, I mean, hiking really, you don't want to be too dramatic about it, but hiking saved my life in a sense because it gave me something to do. It gave me happiness during the pandemic. It's a very dark time for everybody. And so to be able to have that and to go on those trails, to get the exercise, but also to be able to reflect. I mean, there's nothing better for me than when you struggle through a trail and you get up to the top of a mountain and you can see just the vastness of everything and you can reflect on the journey of where you are and you can look down upon the world and realize just how insignificant you are and maybe your problems are insignificant, but you also have these things you want to do. It's a good point just to reflect and think about where you're going. So I guess what changed was I had started to do all that and really love it. And then when I moved out to Washington State and the West, a place that I'd always wanted to live at, but never gotten the chance, and you've got a hiking trail, you can drive 25, 30 minutes away and it's in your backyard, basically. Can't get any better than that, And so any chance that I got, if I was on my off days or hanging out with friends. I mean, we had one summer where I think it was 2023. That summer, we probably went on a hike every single weekend of that summer from, I would say, June until the end of October. And it's just because it's there. It's there for you to use and to love and to make yours. And that's why I think it ratcheted up to a higher level. So where I think my earlier hikes when I was living in South Carolina and Florida, those hikes right before the pandemic and during the pandemic, those were more, I guess, spiritual for me. They were more sort of trying to figure out who I was and what I was trying to do in life, and just to think about where I was to that point and where I was trying to go. The hikes in Washington, a lot of those were just for fun. Like, hey, we're here, let's do it all. And so it was definitely a different phase in life. And another part of it is once you do hiking enough, it gets a little easier maybe. I mean, it's still tough. I have asthma too, so that, not great on my lungs. So I go a little slower than most people. But there's something about once you figure out how to put one foot in front of the other better, you're rolling with it. When you get good at something, you just like doing it. So that really plays into it too.
And I got to say, when you came out here to Washington, you really tackled some of our iconic hikes, like Mailbox Peak. But then you also spent some time in the Southwest and got a chance to explore, the trails in and around Sedona, White Sands National Park. And, when it comes to Mailbox Peak, I feel like that's always a challenging hike, regardless of how fit or how long you've been hiking. It definitely makes you work for that summit, but it's such a rewarding experience to finally reach that Mailbox Peak. Has there been any adventure or trail that felt the most challenging, whether it was physically or mentally? And then was there one that kind of surprised you the most?
I'll tell you, one of our favorite stories that me and my buddies have, we went up into the North Cascades one year. I think it was 2023, I believe, that summer, where we were just doing a hike every weekend. We went and did Artist Point near Mount Baker. And this was, I think, in July. And we hadn't hiked up there yet. And it's a beautiful area. For anybody who is looking for a national park to visit, North Cascades National Park, I have read that it's not visited that much, maybe one of the least visited national parks in the country, but it's so beautiful. It's a little bit of a haul to get there from Seattle. It'll take you a while, but it's right there up near northern Washington and the Canadian border, and just beautiful. Mount Baker's up there, one of the volcanoes of Washington. And so we went up there. I said, hey, let's go check this trail out. We're going to do Artist Point and just go out there. Maybe there's some snow still up there. I don't know. Let's just see what we can get into. And a lot of the things that we got into were a lot of spur of the moment hikes and adventures. That can be really fun, but it can also be kind of dangerous at times. Because if you don't know what you're getting into and then you find something, you're like, crap, what do we do here, right? So that was one of those trips. We thought we were going to find something and we found a whole nother thing, and it just threw us for a loop. So we get up there and we went on this little trail. I think, we probably went, I don't know, maybe half a mile. We didn't go that far. We got to the end of this point, and there's snow everywhere still, even in July. I mean, at those high elevations, it's crazy because it'll feel hot outside, but in the winter, so much snow dumps there that it just doesn't melt. So you've got all these mounds of snow, even though it's like 70 to 80 degrees outside. So a really crazy situation. And so we get out to this point, and I saw a trail that I wanted to just go check out. And so I leave the group. And then by the time I come back, it's like an episode of Survivor. They went, Paul, we have made a decision. And they basically just voted me off the island. And they're like, we're going to go this way. And I look over there and it's just this giant snowfield. And it's this big bowl and it dips in. And I'm like, you guys sure? And they tell me, yep, we're going to do it. We made a decision. So it turns out, I think the hike was Chain Lakes Loop, and it's a loop that's near there. And when the snow is melted, it's very picturesque and very nice. But when there's snow there, it's a little risky. So we didn't even know what trail it was at first. We saw a sign. We're like, let's try this one and just go for it. Going to try to share some of these pictures with you because I took one photo. We go down this big bowl and get to the bottom, and I look back and I take a picture, and it looks like we were at like a Mount Everest expedition. There was just nothing but snow and just a caravan of people walking down this snowfield. And some of my friends started freaking out. I'm like, hey, you can't freak out now. We're going to push through this and we're going to make it happen. And There were some that wanted to tap out. I won't say names, but the thing about me, it's like they know that Paul's up for whatever, right? And so even though I did not vote to go on this hike, I'm gonna just do it. Like, hey, just one foot in front of the other, we're just gonna go for it. And our quick little day trip, maybe for 1 hour, 2 hours, turned into like a whole day ordeal, like a 7 hour thing. We got back probably at like 4 p.m., 5 p.m. I don't know. We ended up getting dumped out at a parking lot that was way down the mountain and had to ask somebody for a ride. And through most of this hike, it was generally fine. It was beautiful. We kept seeing amazing stuff. But then at one point, the trail just disappears. And I've always said I wanted to go back on this hike and see where we were hiking, because I know for a fact we were probably not anywhere near this trail. We were just following snowshoe prints in the ground. And then eventually these snowshoe prints would just disappear. And half the time I'm thinking, I'm like, man, I don't know if we're going the right way. We're just following footprints here. And I got to a point where I'm looking at this giant ridge up in front of us, and we're all just standing there like, where do we go from here? I got a little nervous there, not because something bad was going to happen to us, but I'm thinking, if I climb this ridge and there isn't a trail on the other side of this thing, I swear that was going to be bad, because the way to make it back would have taken twice as long. We were just going to power through and try to figure this out. But we made it, and we took a few tumbles there on the snow. We tried to glissade, I think is what you call it when you get down and you try to just slide down on your butt. We didn't do too well, but that was probably one of the crazier stories. Just not knowing where the trail is, not expecting this to be the trail you're going to be on in the first place, not really researching the trail, so you're just going for it. And then at the end of the day, hey, we came out alive. It was fun. We've got memories. Nobody got hurt, so that's good. Could have maybe been a different situation, but that's, sometimes you have it all planned out and you do it. Sometimes, somebody throws a wrench in the plans and it turns out to be a great day anyways. That's probably the most memorable story I had from hiking up in Washington, for sure.
What a epic experience. And I think for hikers, most hikers that have been on the trail have a similar experience where maybe in the moment it was a little nerve-wracking, but looking back at it now, you can joke, you can laugh about it. If folks don't know, I think Artist Point is the highest paved road in the state of Washington. And I'm glad you mentioned it, because I'm going to try to catch it before they close, because I think they close it around middle of October, depending on the amount of snow that they get in early fall.
Yeah, they get a lot of snow up there. And so I think August is probably a better time. August, September is definitely a better time to go up there. And then a cool thing about being up in that area, if I think it's like towards the end of September, beginning of October, they have this thing called larch season in Washington and areas in the Pacific Northwest. And so it's these pine trees that their needles turn yellow. And so that's the fall colors for some of those parks out there. They might not have the leaves, but they have the large trees. And so if you can time it just right and get a hike out there, those are really just beautiful pictures that you can get in it. But yeah, definitely check the trail maps and download things if you can. Don't do what we did. Check the reviews, because I think for that one, we read the reviews afterwards, and there was somebody saying the week before they had to have like an ice axe going through there. So try to be prepared so you can make it back in one piece.
And you called it, the main reason we're going up there is to try to catch Larch Madness up in the North Cascades. Kind of switching gears, Paul, you mentioned that you have been a TV reporter and journalist for over 10 years, and you really have gravitated towards climate and outdoor storytelling, especially on your social media. Was there a moment when you realized this is the direction I want to take? And what do you hope people get from your platform that maybe they wouldn't get from a traditional news broadcast?
There were some moments early on in my career where I started to focus heavily on weather. So when I was in Texas, there was a lot of tornadoes that we reported on, and weather stories stick out a lot to me because that brings me back to earlier in my childhood. So my family and so many others in Louisiana, Mississippi went through Hurricane Katrina. And in those days, 2005, you don't have social media. You have to watch the TV. You have to figure out what's going on with the news to figure out what's happening with my house. And so it was a very different way of getting information back then. And so that was weather coverage and reporting was so important to me early on. And I think that carried through into my career. And so my first job, I did a lot of stuff on tornadoes. And also I was able to go back to Louisiana to help out with the Great Flood of 2016 in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I was able to help out the TV station that we had over there. And people generally, like, they're just searching for information. And for me, I want to be a person to provide that, because when you're cut off and there's no communication, if you can find somebody who can tell you what's going on, at least, or point you in the right direction, I mean, that's a godsend, really. And I always wanted to be that person because I knew how it felt to be in those shoes, depending on somebody in the news to tell me what was going on. And that developed into my next job. I did a lot more hurricane weather stuff there. And then when I started to get into my environmental stuff, my second job, I started to read about microplastics. And I started to learn more about just what plastic is doing to our environment, particularly single-use plastic. I mean, we use it so much and we throw a lot of it away, and it's very easy for it to get out into the environment. And at this point, when I had done this, I think it was 2018 maybe, but it wasn't as much in the media as it is now. But I teamed up with a grad student and we went around taking water samples. We did an investigation to find out how much plastic is in the water supplies. So we took water sample from the river, a water sample from your tap water. We went into the Capitol building in Columbia, South Carolina, and went to the water fountain, took a water sample from that. And in every single sample of water, we found that there was plastic inside of it. So the conclusion is that you are drinking plastic. And that was a big investigation that I worked on. And that was really the launching point for me. I'm like, oh, this is cool. I like looking into this kind of stuff. And that ended up working out from a point of view of creating change, because the mayor of that town then talked to his city council and said, hey, we should start looking into this if they're finding plastic in our municipal water supply. The gears started clicking for me, like, hey, this is interesting. And maybe I can do some good about it if I keep doing stuff like this. I moved to Florida and did a lot more weather-related stories there, and then wanted to just be in nature as much as I could when I moved out west, and then do some stories more centered around that. So when I moved to Seattle, I got to do a story about just heat waves and climate change and how that affects the seafood industry. I did a lot of stories on wildfires, and it got to the point in my career where I could just keep working on the TV news station route. I could keep doing what I had traditionally done, or I could branch off and do something by myself, choose whatever stories I wanted to cover and whatever I wanted to talk about. And so I dove into all of that. And so that's why I do it, is because it sincerely is extremely interesting to me. That's the selfish reason of it all, right? But the unselfish reason is that I want to really help people with what I'm doing, either by telling them about weather that they need to know about and keeping them informed, or by highlighting a nonprofit organization that's trying to do something to save the planet, introducing them to this organization that they may not know about. Maybe they want to get involved. And so I've already opened up that pathway for them. At the very least, I can increase awareness. And I think a lot of what people do in the hiking community and people who do news stories about nature, I think a lot of it really is just about increasing awareness. Because if we could increase awareness in people, that's the first step towards, I guess, just creating a better world, right? If you don't know about it, then you can never change for the better. And so at the very least, with the content that we create, that's what we can do.
Yeah, and I think, you're covering topics that I think hikers are constantly experiencing or thinking about, whether it's weather, environment, climate. Have you noticed that you being on the trail and being out in nature has inspired some of the stories, or maybe planted a seed for a story to cover?
It definitely helps. I just did a story on Mount Rainier and its melting glaciers. And these glaciers are important, not only for just the tourism vibe of it, because we love to see the mountain, as we affectionately call it in Washington, snow covered. You love to see this giant, beautiful snow covered mountain. But maybe one day, if climate change continues to accelerate, it'll just be just a bare rock without any snow or any ice on it. And so what happens is, these glaciers, they melt, they retreat, and then they refreeze, and then they come back. But over time, what scientists have noticed is that this mountain's glaciers, like all the glaciers around the world, are steadily disappearing, some more than others. And so I've been to Rainier National Park many times, and I've seen these glaciers, and that brought an idea to me like, hey, I want to look into this more. I want to do something specific on this mountain. And I just in July got the chance to do a very long hike up to kind of as close as you can get without hiking the actual mountain, but to get video and to shoot some video of me talking in front of this mountain to do that story. So yeah, I mean, me being out in nature definitely helps to inspire a lot of this, and it helps give me ideas, but it also helps to continue to fuel my passion for doing this, because how can I continue to talk passionately about something if I'm not living it, if I'm not out there, every day, right? There's a disconnect there if you're not actually walking, the walk, so to speak. You just have to be boots on the ground and do it. So that's what hiking does for me. It really helps out in the whole process.
And I'm wondering, Paul, because, you mentioned informing the public, and I think sometimes outdoor communities like hikers and backpackers might not necessarily be aware of the impacts of a trail or the environment or climate in and around their local trail systems. What do you think those outdoor communities can learn from journalists covering not just climate change, but also environmental change in and around their local neck of the woods?
Well, I think they can definitely learn how much humans affect everything. I mean, humans, we have, a lot of people say, especially now with the internet, there's a lot of despair out there. And I noticed that in the content that I put up. People say, oh, this doesn't matter because nature is just going to do its own thing. And you should just give up, essentially, is what they're saying. Stop posting stuff about this. But in reality, for hundreds, thousands of years, humans have taken big steps to affect nature and affect the environment, just taking out forests for agriculture to burning fossil fuels and all of that other kind of stuff. So we have taken a lot of changes to alter and affect nature, change the flow of rivers, all of these other kind of things. And so now that we know a little more about the harm that we have done, right? We have advanced, I think, to this point in society where we have all this information. We've got more information available to us than we ever have in the history of mankind. We can start to undo some of that. We can take steps to bring nature to what it was before humans came in and destroyed everything. And so I think for anybody who is a hiking influencer, if you care about the places that you're walking, if you care about the land that you see, that you take photos of, watching news coverage or reading articles that talk about the impact that humans have can better inform you on what you could do as an individual, how you can help, how you can take action to protect the things that you love. But it can also help you in having conversations with the people that you're making content for to maybe give them awareness or help them bring about some change. So yeah, from that perspective, I think journalism certainly helps out.
And I'm glad you touched on that, because I think you mentioned that Kolchak is one of your favorites here in Washington State. And I think for a lot of us, even if you're not from the Pacific Northwest, the Enchantments permit is something that's highly coveted. And you may have seen the recent reports about what's going on in the Enchantments. And it's kind of disheartening because it seems like the trail specifically to Kolchak is kind of overrun with crowds now, trash. One of the latest clips that I saw was, they were finding not just human waste, but toilet paper, all across the trail. As a journalist who's covering climate and environmental stories, how do you reconcile loving a place while also seeing the strain of human and society impact on it?
That's a big question, and that's a good question. I think before social media really took off, things were a lot calmer, and hiking, I think, being outdoorsy was more of a niche thing to do. But now everybody's got a camera and they can go out and do all this stuff. And I think it definitely accelerated during the pandemic because a lot of people probably felt like me, like I just have to get outside, I have to do something. And it's a shame what has happened at places. And when you see reports of a lot of garbage or a lot of foot traffic, a lot of people trampling on native flowers, getting off trail and messing things up, you start to understand a little more about why permits are required and why parks take steps to limit visitors. But what hiking influencers, I think, can do, it's a tough spot because you want to post all the content you can, show everybody where you've been, but also what happens when you post about something and it goes viral and then a lot of people show up to that area, right? It's a fine line to walk. And it's a mixed opinion kind of thing. You want people to go out and see the world, but when people go out and see the world, you have to understand that inevitably, many of those people are not going to know how to properly take care of the world and they're going to do things. But that was your goal, right? To get more people involved. So I think it has to be a layered approach. You show people these places, but you also have to talk to them about how to take care of these places once you're out there. And I think a hiking influencer can do much more. They have a lot more power than I think they realize. They can not only drive somebody to go somewhere and help out economies that are near these areas with just posting beautiful pictures, but they also have the chance to help people change an entire mindset of how they hike and what they do when they're hiking. So they can teach people to leave no trace, pack in, pack out. So the trash you bring in is the trash you take out. They can teach people to not just start fires randomly, campfires that they're not going to put out in dry areas, because that's when, the entire state of somewhere out west goes on fire, right? So I think you can't put the genie back in the bottle, so to speak, with all this content that we're putting out about the outdoors that is driving people to go outdoors. But you can, at this point, be more proactive and take steps into teaching people who follow you how to better protect the outdoors and leave it as pristine as you can. And I mean, is that not the goal, right? You want to get more people outdoors, but you also have a moment here that while they're outside, you can grab their attention, say, hey, you see all this that you care about now because you're going outdoors? This is how you protect it.
That's so true, Paul, because I'm right there with you. I'd love the fact that anybody can go outside and explore the outdoors. Public land is open for everybody, but places can only handle so much. And I kind of was aware that the strain on the Enchantments was growing. And I think this year it really got bad after the news coverage finally spoke about it. But, previous years there was anywhere from, I believe, 12 to 14 rangers that helped patrol the Enchantments. And in 2025, there's one lone ranger that's in charge of handling 900 plus miles of trail in the enchantment zones. It's not feasible for one person to handle trash at trailheads, the toilets in the backcountry. And while groups are volunteering and stepping up to, take out trash, one thing that blew my mind was on 4th of July weekend, they recorded 2,000 people going on to the Kolchak Trail, which, the Kolchak Trail, like to picture 2,000 people on that trail is just, it blows my mind that that's even feasible. I think telling those stories shines a light on a problem that has been growing, but now, especially this year, has been, like you said, the genie's out of the bottle. You're not going to get people not to go to Kolchak, but there has to be a fine balance in order to keep it pristine, because one of the more disgusting video feeds, and people can see this on YouTube, was they recorded a squirrel or a chipmunk chomping on used toilet paper, which is just disgusting.
Yeah, and we're also at an interesting time with what's going to happen to our national and state parks with the budget cuts that you mentioned. There's fewer people to patrol it. I think it's probably going to be incumbent upon, because more people are visiting national and state parks than ever before. It's going to fall on many people, right? It's going to fall on the government to, unfortunately, start limiting access to some of these places, to put in more permitting systems in place. It's going to fall on more people to volunteer and step up and try to fill those gaps to clean things when the government or the state government might not be able to. It's going to fall on people who have a big following on Instagram or TikTok or whatever to speak up and say, hey guys, I love that you're visiting this place, but here's what you need to do and here's what you need to not do. I mean, that's the challenge about being human, right? We make mistakes, and we're more often going to make mistakes than not, especially if we have never been taught that that's the wrong way to do it. I like to keep hope. It can be a gloomy world, but I like to be optimistic and think that not everybody is doing this with malice in their hearts. Like, some people they just don't know. They don't know that they're doing the wrong thing here. So they need to be taught. They need to be led to change their ways. Some people, they just don't care. They know it's bad and they're just going to do it. But I think the majority of people, you can reach out to them and you can help them and you can change things there. But it's going to be tough. It's going to have to be a layered thing, and it's going to be a lot of work. And unfortunately, some areas will probably have to be closed or very limited access. And that serves a lesson in and of itself, a cautionary tale, I guess, of if you don't want to lose these places, if you don't want this to turn into a garbage dump. I mean, look at what's happened with Mount Everest, right? All of the stuff that's up there and all of the garbage that's also left up there as well. If you don't want to lose access to these amazing places, you got to take care of them. And hopefully that'll be enough to switch people's thinking. It's just tough because we live in a new world here and there's so many people going outside than before, which is awesome, right? But that also comes with its own problems. And here we're just going to have to navigate this together.
Definitely going to take a layered approach. And I love that you said cautionary tale, because I think we've seen other places be that cautionary tale. And if things continue, permits might be needed. Like you said, limiting access might be needed in order to restore these beautiful places. But you can avoid those headaches by helping out as much as you can on trail, whether it's just packing out extra trash that might not have been yours in order to keep these wild places wild. You know, Paul, I feel like you've been able to showcase a lot of different places here in the United States. You know, you mentioned Mount Rainier, but you also have covered wildfires, hurricanes, oil spills. What do you see coming up in the last quarter of 2025 as something that maybe has caught your attention that you might be considering exploring and covering in future segments?
Ooh, I don't know. That's a good question. As far as stories, I'm a little haphazard with my stories right now because I'm just looking around to what's big in the news that other people have covered and that I can go out and do in my own way. I've done a lot of stories recently on data centers. I've got a new story coming up very soon on a giant data center that Meta is building in North Louisiana and whether or not that rural area can handle all of that, because data centers and artificial intelligence, we love it. It's on our phone. It tells us stuff very quickly and easily, but people don't realize that those facilities also, they use up a ton of water, a lot of electricity. It's really a big drain. It can be on where they put those, and they can be a little environmentally destructive as well. And that's been really big in the news recently. So I've just been, sometimes it's a week to week thing. I don't know what I'm going to cover. So I don't know what the next project's going to be. I do know that as far as photography, I love to take pictures. And if you check out my Instagram, you can see a lot of nature pictures that I post from my hiking. So I try to mix it up. I don't always just post news videos. I sometimes will share a cool little picture that I took of a mountain or something. But fall is coming up and I have not been out into the New England area, or maybe even, I don't know, somewhere up north, Wisconsin, Minnesota, to go check out the leaves. So I think I may head up to New England and go see what the trees are doing. I know I got probably like a few weeks to do that. Maybe like 2 or 3 weeks I might head up there. But that's something that's on my bucket list. As far as new projects coming up, I don't know. News related, I don't know. I kind of just figure that out as I go. Maybe there's a couple trips in here to see something pretty for fall before the snow and the cold sets in that I might go do.
And I got to ask, because I feel like it's probably a mixture of both of these, but you travel to these beautiful places and sometimes it's more of a leisurely travel, and I feel like other times you travel for the story. Have you noticed that in recent years, there's an intersection between your travel and the stories that you tell?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I guess recently this year, I started to travel and also to work at the same time because, sometimes you're balling on a budget. You want to get things knocked out as much as you can, right? So I've been to, since I started doing this by myself, Arizona and Washington. I've been back to Washington primarily. Then also Florida. I didn't do too much traveling outside there. But in Arizona and Washington, when I went back, I did some hiking, but I also tried to get a story done as well. So that's definitely been something I take advantage of. As far as before this year, when I traveled, it was mainly just to take pictures and to take nice little nature videos. That was more of like a decompress for me because I was working in whatever city I was in, and I was just in the news of that town all the time, doing stories in that area. And when I left to go on vacation, that was it. I was just taking pictures and I was taking videos. And it's just a different life that I live now. Now I travel places to hike and get pictures and video, but also to do a news story as well. But yeah, that's just something that has sort of morphed for me over time. I'm not going to say that I don't take vacations anymore. I just work a little bit while I'm on those vacations. I'm trying to, find a good work-life balance here, but it can be a little bit of a challenge. But yeah, for sure. That's what I'm doing nowadays.
One of the regular segments that we like to do here on the podcast is do a deep dive into our guest Instagram feed and highlight a specific post or reel that captures our attention. And the one that caught my eye was this beautiful shot at White Sands National Park. I can't remember if it was either sunset or sunrise, but just the landscape, the colors were just absolutely beautiful. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience and how it felt to be in such a surreal landscape in the middle of nowhere in southern New Mexico?
Yeah, I do remember that photo. That was for a sunset, by the way. And it was a little bit of a crazy trip to get there. So that was when I was moving. So I drove back from Seattle to Louisiana. I live near New Orleans now. And that took me 6 days. So I'm a big road trip fan, but 6 days is a little bit on a road trip, even for me. But I was trying to think of where I had spent the night. I think I had slept in Flagstaff, I believe. And I'd been in Fresno before that. And I said, I got to get to Flagstaff at this time. I got there super late at night because I got to sleep and then I got to wake up and I got to book it down to White Sands because I had never been to White Sands before. And I wanted to catch it at sunset and get some cool pictures out of it while I still had some time. So I got the hotel in Alamogordo, which is a town that's just like right next to the park entrance. And I just drove straight through. I don't even know if I remember if I stopped for a break, maybe just very briefly, and just went in, just hustling, just get in the park, go in there, try to find this one spot. I parked, the sun's setting, I've got to get all my stuff. And, I'm by myself when I do these things. So I'm like grabbing my phone. I have a little tripod I'm grabbing and trying to figure out how I'm going to pull this shot off. And I just climb up the sand, just these huge sand dunes. It's just amazing to see. It's like being on another planet. And I get up there, and thankfully this was in, I think, the beginning of March. So the weather was very cool. It was nice. And I get up there, there's some people around, but I'm kind of by myself. And I just, with the little daylight I have left, I'm just snapping pictures as fast as I can. Like, let me get something. I did a few videos of myself just trying to get, like a selfie or something. By yourself, it's a little hard, but I made it work. That was cool to see White Sands because it is just like being in a different world. The sand, as far as you can see, one of the more unique national parks I've been to for sure. It's a desert, like something you would see out of the Sahara Desert, but it's right here in our backyard in New Mexico. It's very great to see, and I'm glad I was able to get something out of that.
I got to agree with you, Paul. I think White Sands is so unique. It really does seem like you're in a different planet. And I love the fact that you have that beautiful white sand and then the mountains in the backdrop. It's just an unbelievable place. I've only been there once, and I kind of want to go back there again to either catch a sunrise or a sunset because it's definitely a magical place.
Absolutely. And I'm glad I was able to see it with some nice, cool weather because I'm sure it can get really hot up there. And sometimes you might not even be able to hike out there. So it worked out.
These last 3 questions, Paul, are questions we like to ask all our guests on the podcast. I feel like for most day hikers, even backpackers, and especially road trippers, I feel like there tends to be a regular either summit routine or maybe an end of the hike routine. For a lot of us, it's packing a favorite snack or drink. For others, it's a moment of zen. And then for a lot of us, it's that favorite meal afterwards. Is there a regular customer routine that you like to do when you reach your destination or maybe when you make it back out?
Well, when I reach the destination, so in my hikes, I typically look for something that's got a great view. I mean, I envy people who can just hike to hike, and it doesn't matter what the view is at the end. I mean, that's go for it. But for me, if I'm struggling, I'm sweating, I'm out of breath, I need to have some sort of reward at the end of that trail. And I want to, climb this mountain and have this beautiful clearing. And for me, besides sort of the selfish reason, of course, of getting really pretty pictures and showing people where I've traveled to, I just take a moment, not only to just catch my breath because I've just been struggling and sweating this whole time, but also, like I had said earlier, I look out into the vastness of it all and just start to think about my life and where I want to go. It's a good place to just reflect and to think. And sometimes you'll get pretty lucky in a hike and there won't be that many people there, or you'll be by yourself and you'll just be able to be with yourself and your own thoughts. And I know some people might not like that, but just try it sometimes. Just think about things, and maybe something will pop up in your mind that'll help you down the road if you just sit on a mountaintop and reflect for a little bit. So that's the main purpose I like to choose those hikes, is because I can definitely reflect and think about things and think about how fortunate I've been in my life, right? To be able to go and do these things and to see these places. You can get caught up in the little moments in life where you're like, oh, this is terrible, this is hard, why me? But hiking puts it all in perspective, because you're up there struggling, trying to survive, and then you get up there and you finish it and you're proud of yourself, and then you can just think about how fortunate you are to be able to do that. So after the hike, I will say we have this ritual, me and my buddies in Washington, that after the hike we do burgers and beers, post hike burgers and beers every time. We don't miss it. And that's fun because when we hike, it's usually a new trail, and none of us were from the area. So we were exploring these new towns that were near this trail all the time. And so burgers and beers always gives you a chance to go to this town and search around and try to find a cool little spot. Who knows, that you might come back to again and again. I found a couple places like that in my travels, and I get to, support a small business and get to try new food. And I mean, after you've been struggling all day, who doesn't love a burger and beer, right? That's just the cherry on top, but with a burger on top, it's great. You get nice, refreshing beer, nothing, too heavy, just a nice little light, refreshing beer and a good old burger, and you're ready to rock and roll.
Now, this next one, Paul, is about your pack list. And, is there a luxury item that you tend to pack that falls outside of the essentials? And luxury, not in terms of cost, but just something that brings you comfort that, might not be part of the 10 essentials, but you bring it because it brings you joy, brings you comfort.
I'm going to be really boring with this, and not really. I don't. So I just you bring the water, the essentials, right? Granola bars. I will say maybe a lot of people don't, but since I shoot a lot of videos and pictures, I got tripods and little attachments and all this other stuff weighing down my pack. So I guess in lieu of my luxury item, I guess that's what I have. Just stuff to attach to my phone that is just going to be heavy, but it'll help me somehow. So I guess that maybe that counts. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. I still say $1 million idea if somebody can invent this, but to make a trekking pole into a tripod for your camera or your phone, I think would be huge in the outdoor community, because you're already carrying trek poles if you use trek poles, but if you can find an attachment to put your phone or your camera and anchor it in a way that's secure, I think it'd be a game changer for a lot of us.
Yeah. All right. Let's make it happen. Let's go into business here. Let's do it.
Now, Paul, you mentioned that the Northeast and the fall colors, kind of have your attention possibly for this upcoming fall season. Is there any hiking or travel goals that you have for the remainder of the year?
It's going to be tough because I don't know. I mean, usually when I was in the Northwest, you can hike the whole year, but hiking easily and safely is really only done in the summer, as the snow is thawed out. If you're doing it in the winter or even in the spring, there's still a lot of snow. You need special stuff for your vehicle to even get up places, and you need special equipment then to get out and try to be safe. So usually about sort of the end of October was when I would cut my hiking off and then go into hibernation for a little bit. But when you live in the South, it's a little different because the winters can be a little milder. You can maybe hike into November, into December in the mountains if it doesn't get too crazy. So maybe now that I'm back here in the South, I'll look into something. I would love to go back up to, Tennessee, Georgia, North Carolina. Maybe find me a little cabin up there, take some time, and whether it's by myself or with someone else, I don't know, but hit up a few trails in that area that I've neglected for a while because I've been living on the other side of the country. So maybe I'll get some stuff in the winter here. If not, I'll just wait till spring. I'll thaw out, and then I'll be ready to roll once I get out of hibernation.
Now, Paul, this last section of the podcast is the this or that questions. We got some new categories for season 12. And the first one is, if you had to choose between these two seasons, would you choose summer hiking or fall hiking?
Ooh, summer or fall hiking? I think it depends on where you're at, right? So I grew up in the South, I love this area, but in the summer, it's just miserable outside. Like, I'm sorry, but you go outside and you go and do stuff in nature because you have no choice. I mean, it's there. You just got to do it. And it's hot. You're not going to escape it. So if you're in areas like this or like New Mexico, Arizona, you should not be hiking in the summer out there, even though I have, because, that's just how my trips align. But I was safe about it. You do it really early and you try to escape all those high temperatures. So there are certain places where summer is not advisable to hike, so it's better to do it in the spring or the fall. So I'm a spring or fall person in this part of the country. If I was in the Northwest, it is summer all day, baby, because for those not familiar with the Pacific Northwest, I mean, there's nothing like a Pacific Northwest summer. Let me put it that way. There's nothing like it. It's beautiful blue skies. You're in the 70s. It's amazing. You see the mountains all the time after going through the rain and the clouds, and the snow's melted mostly. So if you're going to hike, you do it in the summer. So I'm a both seasons kind of person, depending on where I am.
And this next one's a tough one, but waterfalls or summits?
It's not tough for me. Summits. Give me a summit. I don't chase waterfalls either. So, if you can have a waterfall attached to a summit, we can get that in there. That's nice, right? That's a little few and far between. But yeah, a summit, because for me, waterfalls, I mean, they're cool, but they all kind of look the same. Sometimes, you get to your marvelous ones, your 7 wonders of the world waterfalls. But for the most part, it's just a waterfall. But the summit, I mean, you're up there, you can see new landscapes, you can see for days, it's beautiful. Give me a summit any day.
And then in order to reach those summits, if you had to choose between these two routes, would you rather choose a route with switchbacks or would you rather go straight up?
Oh, that's a tough one. That's like, what's the lesser of two evils, right? I don't know. How much time do I have? How much energy do I have? Okay, so Zion National Park. If you're hiking up to Angel's Landing, there's that section before you get to Angel's Landing where there's a million switchbacks. I mean, that's pretty terrible, but it's paved really nicely and the ground's really good. It's very easy on your legs and knees, and it's a million switchbacks, but you're getting to see all these landscapes as you're going up. It's a really pretty view. So if it's switchbacks like that, sure. If it's not, if there's like a bunch of rocks in your way and all of that, and you keep going, maybe not, maybe just a straight up there, but then how bad is I don't know. Can I pick neither?
You could say both or neither.
I think I'm just, whatever is on the hike that is the summit that I'm trying to get to is the one that I pick, because I got no choice.
And then this next one is a controversial one for a lot of hikers, but do you use trek poles or do you prefer to be freehand?
I use poles. Now, I have found that as you get older, poles are very beneficial. Now, when I was in my early 20s, I hadn't got into hiking that much and I was just doing it. I just went without poles. I didn't know how to use poles. I just scaled everything and it was fine. But then, I had young legs and knees back then, younger. But then I started getting poles because coming down, it's a lot easier on your legs, I have found. And if you're hiking in places where it's muddier or maybe it's a little icy or a little slick, I found that poles can give you that better grip to be able to go up or even to go down to brace yourself. But poles can be hard to get used to, and so you got to practice with them for a little while, and I use 2 of them typically. Now, the part where I won't use poles is if I'm scrambling up something, or if it's something like I have to use my hands, I'll put them away, because sometimes when you travel, I don't necessarily have poles with me because, some places might get them through security and it might be fine. Some other places might have an issue with it. So yeah, I always try to use poles because I care about my knees. And it makes it a little easier sometimes to go up and go down.
And this next one is about your footwear. Do you use trail runners or traditional hiking boots?
At one point did use trail runners, and I realized that when I was doing this, I was rolling my ankle a lot because they were pretty low cut. And I know a lot of the people will disagree with, oh, you roll your ankle more in hiking boots maybe or something like that. But for me, I mean, it might not be for everybody, but for me, I found that having that extra ankle support was helpful for me with hiking boots, and I definitely roll my ankle a lot less now. I think it also comes down to just paying attention to where you're stepping. I mean, you've got all this beautiful stuff around you. It's hard, but hiking is also looking at the ground a tremendous amount of time so you don't get hurt. And so I think I got better also at paying attention. So I don't know. I feel more safe and comfortable having that extra ankle support. So for that reason, I now use some hiking boots.
And then this next one's about trail systems. Do you prefer a loop trail or an out back trail?
Both is fine. I do day hikes. I only really do day hikes. I haven't camped out anywhere just because I haven't had the time necessarily to. I'm not opposed to it, but out and backs and loop trails are okay. It just depends on, I guess, what I have more time for in the day. As long as it gets me back to my car in a timely manner and to burgers and beers, like, I'm good with it. So that's the answer there.
And this next one, Paul, is about trail conditions. And I know that you've encountered these here in the Pacific Northwest, and you might have encountered them down south and in the East Coast. But if you had to choose between these two, would you choose a trail that has muddy conditions or that's completely rocky?
So I don't know. It just depends on probably muddy, but is the mud going to make it too difficult to go up? Am I going to be slipping a lot? So then I would choose rocky, but also I just hate a rocky trail. I just do it because I want to see the views at the end of it. But when you're stepping and there's a big rock and then there's a little one, and you're just trying not to like twist your ankle or slip or anything like that, it's just a little tedious, you know? I get it. You want to just keep it as close to nature as possible. You don't want to plow the whole trail through, but kind of annoying. So I guess I'll pick muddy. I don't know. It just depends on the mud though.
And then these next two, Paul, I think are hardest ones. But if you had to choose, would you choose a sunset hike or a sunrise hike?
Probably a sunrise hike, because sunsets are beautiful, but I do a lot of solo hiking, so I'm not too crazy about hiking down in the dark by myself. So if I get up early enough and catch that sunrise, I'm all there for it. But unfortunately, I'm usually hiking by the time the sun's up anyways. I only gotten a couple sunrises and sunsets in my life on hikes.
Now, this next one, do you have a preference between spring wildflowers or fall colors?
Fall colors, for sure. They're great, you know? You get a better chance of doing stuff with your pictures on that one, I think. The layers and all that. And I think fall represents something. I don't know. I know spring is like rebirth and all that. Okay. But fall is, for me, being from the South, fall is like represents it's not going to be that hot anymore. So, you know, you get your pumpkin spice latte in there. You get some football weather, you know, can't beat it.
And then the last one, Paul, is new for season 12, and it's about electrolytes. I feel like electrolytes are a big item when it comes to hiking, regardless of where you're located. But if you had to choose between how you take your electrolytes, are you taking electrolyte tablets or are you using the powdered form?
That's a good question. I haven't done either, but I'd probably drink it. So powder, I guess, would be my go-to, yeah.
Well, that was it, Paul, for the this or that questions. For folks that want to follow your journey and as well as see some of the great content that you've been able to provide and the amazing coverage that you've done over the last couple of years, where are some of the places they can find you both online and on social media?
Absolutely. So I'm on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Just search Paul Rivera News and you'll find me. And I'm available everywhere. I try to post as consistently as I can. So if you care about the environment, if you want to stay informed on what's happening with nature or climate change, or if you want to stay informed on the weather, you know, I've got all that content for you. And I'll throw in a really beautiful picture of a hike there as well. And if you want to find out how to get involved with some good organizations, that's really what I want to do and expand more, is highlight the people, organizations that are trying to make a difference in this world, and to tell you how you can get involved in helping this planet out. So that's what I got at my channel. So come say hi. Let's try to build this community together here.
And we'll be sure, Paul, to link it in the episode show notes so people can follow along. Paul, it has been a blast speaking with you, and I can't wait to see what you're able to share with the community in the coming months and where, you know, your travel takes you. I'm hoping that you make it to the Northeast, because that's a bucket list destination to peep those fall colors. But it has been a great experience talking with you, and look forward to see what the rest of 2025 has to offer for you.
Thank you, my friend. Thanks for having me on, and keep doing what you're doing. We need more voices like you, getting people excited about nature, and I really am happy to see your channel grow as well.
And that brings us to the end of this episode alongside Paul Rivera. We extend a heartfelt thanks to them for joining us on the podcast. Be sure to follow them on Instagram at Paul Rivera News and by checking out the episode show notes. This episode of Hikes and Mics was produced by Jordan Smith. Be sure to follow her adventures on Instagram at jordan.journeys. New episodes will drop every Monday throughout the fall hiking season, with occasional Friday bonus episodes sprinkled in. To make sure you never miss a moment of these inspiring trail stories, hit the follow or subscribe button. Your support truly keeps this community growing. Don't forget to connect with us on Instagram at Hikes and Mics. That's where you'll find behind-the-scenes episode visuals, my own hiking adventures, and plenty more to keep the fall inspiration flowing. As we wrap up today's journey, remember, the trails may be covered in leaves, but the spirit of adventure is wide open. So tread those happy trails, breathe in that crisp autumn air, and keep exploring. Until next time, my fellow hikers, happy hiking. This episode's music was created by Ketsa. Follow him on Instagram at Ketsa Music. This episode is brought to you by Ursa Minor Outfitters. Folks, I'm absolutely in love with my loon mug. It's handmade, it's an absolute piece of art. Whether it's at the office or at the house, people keep asking to check it out. If you're not a loon fan, they also have other beautiful mugs for wildlife fans of moose, bears, and eagles. They specialize in products highlighting the outdoors and local pride through quality design by local artists. They've even started expanding into items beyond mugs, like apparel, dog accessories, and soon candles and more. They also try to partner and highlight other small businesses, and in some cases, forego profits in lieu of charitable giving to help their community, such as the dog rescue. So check them out, ursaminooroutfitters.com, and enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. And for our four-legged hiking partners, they also have a portable silicone dog bowl and also a sweet over-the-collar dog bandana. Go check them out, ursaminooroutfitters.com, and don't forget to enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order.